I apologize if this is not the right place to share this, but I find it really difficult to seek advice in general, let alone online, so please be patient with me. I apologize also for the possible length of this. To put it another way, this is complicated. My spouse and I have been together for 15 years, and we have almost 12 years of marriage under our belt. We have 2 sons together, one biological and one that I love my entire life. I met my wife at a cookout hosted by a mutual friend. She had come with the wife of a friend of mine. Back then, they had worked together. That day, we clicked, and I felt like we were meant to be together forever. Something changed recently. We seem to be separated by an unseen barrier that appears to be getting thicker every day. She hesitated before speaking, and I could tell by the way she looked at me that something was off. I couldn't quite pinpoint when it began or why. We didn't seem to be communicating at all. I would be downstairs by myself while she went upstairs to read her book. She would leave me to look after the boys more frequently as she went out to meet her friends. When had we ever really talked about anything other than the kids or some menial chore around the house? I couldn't even begin to recall. We appeared to be merely going through the motions of a married couple, losing our true connection in the process. A few weeks ago, I went and did some quick errands while my wife was at her appointment. She left her phone in the car, and I discovered this when I returned. She would take at least 20 minutes, I knew. After some time, an alert appeared. My stepson was there. I thought it would be funny to send him a message from me using a filter instead of his mom, even though I have no idea how to use Snapchat. I responded to him with a silly photo. I inadvertently ended up in my wife's chat section after sending. It appeared to be nothing at first. I turned to put down the phone, but before I could, I saw a name that I detest. Let's call him Lewis. I paused at first. I've always wanted to be the person who looks through someone else's phone without permission. I never imagined that when it came to my wife, I would be that guy. On the other hand, I never imagined myself in this situation. My curiosity overcame me, and I must admit that what I saw completely shocked me. She had stored explicit pictures of them together. There were pictures of her and pictures of him in their pants. Videos and recorded conversations about their indecent behavior were present. Let's just say it involved oral sex to avoid getting into too much detail. The obvious betrayal didn't deter me from continuing to read. It was challenging to put together the entire story because of the dispersed dates and scant historical details, but my curiosity kept me going. Another level of complexity was introduced by Snapchat's automatic disappearance of some parts of the content. What precisely took place? I had to find out. Inside, it was devouring me. Based on my observations, events began to occur on my birthday as well as a few other occasions during the previous few months. She had prepared a surprise party for me while I slept upstairs because it was a significant occasion. When the other guests were downstairs, I went upstairs to crash because I had gotten too wasted. She had, I suppose, invited him over. She knew I was dead drunk and that I wouldn't wake up. He dipped in after the last visitor had dipped out. What was most devastating was the way she talked about me. It was rarely flattering and frequently only partially accurate. Some claims were downright untrue or deceptive. She told him, I don't know why it was saved, that I was a bad lover who didn't seem to care about her anymore, which is completely untrue. I like to think that I still had my vigor and stamina. We were intimate about 2 to 3 nights a week on average, even with her being strange and acting weird towards me over the last little while. But now it all made sense. I suppose when I look back now, it's been me pleasuring her for the most part. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love making my wife feel good, but sometimes it's nice to get something in return. And now that I think about it, that hasn't happened for quite some time. And then I go on to read that she's disgusted by me and hates me touching her. Well, in that moment, the salon door opens, and she peeks out and smiles and waves me in. Was I a fool to pay for that for her? I was shocked, dumbfounded. I didn't smile back, but I remember making sure I closed the chat she had with Lewis, made sure it didn't look like I was snooping around. I put the phone back where I found it, and then I made my way inside the salon. The kicker then was the lash lady was telling me that my wife was saying how amazing a husband I was and how she wishes she had a husband like me who treated her so well. I had to smile and laugh. What on earth could she have been telling this lady when I was reading something completely earth-shattering moments earlier? As soon as we reached our car, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I spilled all the details to her, making sure she understood not to touch her phone until we had a chance to discuss everything. We cried and yelled on the drive home. Once we arrived, I immediately delved into the issue at hand. She was hesitant but eventually gave me her unlocked phone. It was a tough conversation from there on out. We argued over and over, with her denying and then admitting, until finally, she relented. She confessed that she had been feeling neglected and undesired, but that it wasn't an excuse to cheat. It was a confession that left me feeling heartbroken and betrayed, but also confused. I couldn't understand how everything had spiraled so out of control. Then I started asking myself, had I been so focused on my own desires that I had neglected her needs? Had I unintentionally pushed her towards Lewis's arms? I had questioned her about Lewis, trying to understand the extent of their relationship. My wife had responded by saying that they had been texting and sending nudes for months, but that they had never slept together. She maintained that it had always been just a sexting relationship and nothing more. I told her that it was hard to believe based on the messages back and forth to Lewis. Then she admitted to the infidelity with Lewis in her own home on my birthday. She said they had sex in the spare bedroom in the basement. And then there was a time she said she went for a hike with a girlfriend, and she had actually met up with him instead of her girlfriend, and they had sex off the trail in the middle of the bush. My heart fell to my feet as she confessed. I tried to remain composed, but my anger and pain boiled over. I had always been there for her, providing for her family and sacrificing my own personal time to be with her and our boys. How could she do this to me? How could she throw away everything we had built together? It gets better. I had to know everything. So, I kept probing and asking all the questions that came to mind. As we got deeper into the conversation, she wasn't crying, by the way. More and more was uncovered. Now, this brings me to Lewis. Before we met, she had been seeing Lewis. I never liked the guy. She'd bring him up sometimes, and sometimes even mutual friends would bring him up, and I just hated it. There were little comments she'd bring up about him every now and again, and looking back, I should have known. But hindsight is always 20/20. What I didn't know was that she was seeing him behind my stepson's bio dad. Apparently, she didn't know who was my stepson's real father at the time she got pregnant, which is why the bio dad took off and left her. She kept seeing Lewis for a little while after, but he took off right before he was born and left her high and dry with my precious boy. Eventually, she said she got a paternity test because she was trying to get financial assistance from my stepson's bio dad, and it was confirmed that he was in fact the father and not Lewis. As soon as she spoke those words, my thoughts ran wild, and I confronted her about any and every situation where she could have potentially cheated. Most of the examples were minor, except for one that stood out. Many years ago, before we were even married, she didn't come home until almost 2 a.m. after work one night. I asked her where she had been, but all she said was that she was out. Despite my concerns, I brushed it off in my naive state of being in a new relationship. However, it always stayed in the back of my mind and came up again on that particular night as I asked her, trying to control my emotions that were a mix of anger and hurt. She immediately became tense. Now the waterworks, tears started streaming down her face. She admitted to going for drinks with a male coworker who had been flirting with her. She had told him that she was single at the time, and they went for drinks and ended up making out in his car in the parking lot of the bar. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, the lies, the betrayal, the years of secrets. The pain of the past was now coming back to haunt us. It felt like a lifetime of love and trust had been shattered in just a few hours of uncovering the truth. I didn't know who I was speaking to anymore. And so now I'm here, writing this. My wife went away for the weekend so we could have some space. Apparently, she's at a girlfriend's house, but I can't even be sure about that. I told her that if I find out that she went to Lewis's place, that the marriage is over, that this is over. She said she wouldn't, but who knows? Who knows what's true anymore? I'm taking the boys to their volleyball games this weekend, so I'll be able to keep myself busy. But I'm at a loss here. It seems that every direction I look is the wrong one. I don't want to lose my wife. I don't want to lose my boys. I love my family more than anything. However, I refuse to just sit back and be taken advantage of, to be made to feel small and deceived, only to shrug it off and act like it didn't affect me. I feel completely alone and unsure of what to do. So, I took a leap of faith and came here, despite my lack of knowledge on the subject. I can't stop thinking about what she was telling Lewis. I feel totally emasculated. Do I follow her? Divorce? Seeing as how this seems to be a troubling trend. I wasn't lying when I said I found out she ran right to Lewis. This was it. I just have to figure out how to keep my boys. Being a father is the best thing that ever happened to me. Edit 1. I took pictures of the conversations they had and that we've had. I'm compiling the evidence just in case and to keep her honest. Edit 2. I think I need to take a break and process everything until tomorrow. This has all been a bit too much for me to handle at the moment. But I want to thank everyone for their comments and advice, even the ones who believe my fate is to be cuckolded. I knew that people would have different and passionate opinions, and that's what I wanted to hear others' perspectives. It's just difficult to accept that my marriage may be over so suddenly after investing half of my life into building it. If anything changes, I'll make sure to post an update. Well, that's certainly one way to find out your wife's been keeping secrets, like a squirrel hoarding nuts for winter, huh? And Lewis, the mysterious figure lurking in the shadows of your marriage, making surprise appearances like a recurring villain in a bad movie sequel. Who needs Netflix when you've got this level of suspense right at home? At least you've got your priorities straight, documenting every scandalous detail, even though it's hard to read. Update 1, Monday morning came, and my wife comes back home. She gets ready, and I try to be cool and casual, ask where she stayed over the weekend before she goes to work. I just happened to be working from home that day. She told me it was a female coworker, Natalia, because she was too embarrassed to tell our mutual friends that we got into an argument because she didn't want to tell them what it was about. She said she wants to fix this and doesn't want everyone knowing. She said we can fix this. I had a hunch that she wouldn't tell me the truth. There were a few ladies she's close to at work. One of them has become a close friend of mine as well, and I didn't think she'd go there to air out her dirty laundry. The other she's mentioned a few times. I know she's a real person because we've gone out on double dates a few times with whoever she's dating at the time. She can't keep a boyfriend. She's constantly dating someone new, and whenever my wife says she's going out for drinks with the girls, she's there. So I know she's a good time and sort of a bad influence. So if she's going anywhere to complain about a marriage and cry it out, it would have been her. So I'm not proud of it, but I go on Facebook and find Natalia's profile and message her on there. I kind of lie and say that I wanted to plan a fun date night with my wife next weekend, and I was hoping that Natalia'd come along and invite whoever. I also go in and sort of say I hope you and my wife had a good time over the weekend. She comes back and says she'd love to hang out, but then quickly says that she's not sure what I'm talking about. She said she's been out of town for a funeral but will be back in time for the date night next weekend. And so then I knew my wife had been lying again. I sat there in disbelief, staring at my phone as I read Natalia's response. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of the information. She had lied to me again. It was like a knife twisting in my gut. I couldn't believe the extent of her deceit. I felt a surge of anger and hurt course through my veins. How could she do this to me, to her family? I thought we were partners, equals in this marriage. But now, I started to wonder if I had ever truly known her. Well, it's over, she said. She didn't want everyone knowing. I picked up the phone and called my brother, who just went through something similar. I told him what happened, and I'm not afraid to say that I shed some tears. I couldn't let my wife continue to lie and manipulate me. It was time to take control of my life and protect my family. He gave me the information to his lawyer, and I immediately emailed him. His assistant got back right away, and I got things started. I said I wanted joint custody of my kids and explained the situation. I told my brother not to tell anybody quite yet, but that I wanted to get things settled and really hit her where it hurts before anybody found out. Smooth move, OP. Kudos on the swift decision to call in the cavalry, because nothing says "I'm done with your lies" like calling up the lawyer and dropping the D word. Your wife's lies are like a slap in the face, leaving you reeling with disbelief and betrayal, from fabricating tales about innocent outings to concocting elaborate excuses. She's mastered the art of deception with alarming ease. Update 2. A few weeks later, I received a call from the lawyer's office. He informed me that the divorce was underway and that I needed to gather all pertinent information and documents. I felt a sense of relief knowing that I was taking the necessary steps to protect myself and my family during this time. I also reached out to a therapist to help me navigate the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. He also said that I had a good chance of keeping my kids with me if they chose to stay with me. Well, that also scared me because I felt like we were all so close. I didn't want my kids to have to choose between their mom or dad. This was all supposed to be pretty secret. I wanted to make sure I had everything covered before giving her the papers because I didn't know how she'd react. So I was essentially waiting for the right moment. Some of you might think that I was just dragging it on, but I wasn't. There was a method to the madness. Yes, during all of this, I was still acting like I was wanting to fix things with my wife. I couldn't give her any idea that I was wanting to end things. So I played along. I tried to play house to the best of my ability. But then there was sort of this sticky thing that happened in trying to keep things secret. Things, in fact, did not stay a secret. My brother, of course, told his wife, and his wife then kind of spilled the beans to everyone. I wasn't really mad about it, but then it ended up getting back to my sons because their cousins told them what their mom had done. My son sat me down one day while their mom was out and said that they knew what was going on with me and mom. They said they had my back and that they said no matter what, they don't want to live with her. I told them I'd do whatever I could to make that happen. Later that day, I decided to give my soon-to-be ex the divorce papers. As I handed her the papers, she was in shock. She couldn't believe that I had taken such a drastic measure, and she begged me to reconsider. But I was firm in my decision. I made it clear that I wanted to do what was best for our kids and that I was willing to fight for their best interest. In the coming weeks, the legal process began. We met with our respective lawyers, and the negotiation started. Every day, I felt the weight of the divorce hanging over me like a dark cloud. But I knew that I had to be strong for my kids during this time. The boys stayed with me, and my soon-to-be ex moved out. You guessed it, she went to stay with Louis. Yikes! Your carefully constructed plan starts to unravel faster than a cheap sweater in the wash. Thanks a lot, loose-lipped relatives, for turning a covert operation into a family gossip fest. And let's not forget the emotional bombshell dropped by your sons when they pledged their allegiance to Team Dad. Their declaration that they don't want to live with their mom, that they have your back, is nothing short of touching. It's a testament to the bond you've built with them. Update 3. The boys are with me full-time, and that's now legal in the court. My ex gets them every second weekend, but that was only if she moved out of Louis's place and got her own apartment, which she did. She stayed with Louis a little bit longer. She had also quit her job that she's been at for over 10 years because he claimed he had an opportunity for her to work from home doing something with his business or something like that, but he actually ended up getting arrested for tax evasion. I don't really know the details. Anyway, I'll try to keep things as simple as possible. She's out of a job, and she's currently looking for employment. She's asked me for money a few times to pay the rent, but I flat out told her that I can't do it. I think she's now looking to move back into her family home with her mom and dad. She has nowhere else to go. Everyone's pretty not impressed with her right now, and the boys don't really want to have anything to do with her. The divorce proceedings were difficult, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was a roller coaster of emotions, and it felt like a heavy weight was on my chest every day. My ex tried to pull me down, and there were times when I thought I would never see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I kept going, not just for myself, but for my boys. They needed a stable environment, and I knew that I had to be the one to provide that for them. Well, it sounds like your ex has really hit rock bottom, huh? Good. I mean, quitting her job for a sketchy work-from-home opportunity with her tax-evading beau, really? Hey, at least you've got the boys on your side, right? They're like the ultimate judge and jury, handing down the verdict of we don't want anything to do with mom faster than you can say child support payments. As for you, you're just trying to keep your head above water in this sea of drama. It's like being the captain of the Titanic, except instead of an iceberg, you're navigating through your ex's train wreck of life choices. Cheers to standing firm in the face of adversity and forging a brighter future for yourself and your boys. What do you make of this? Did you ever have to maintain a sense of stability and normalcy for your children amidst the chaos of divorce?